Before the Industrial Revolution, most goods were made by hand. That means that if you wanted a chair, a tailor would have to stitch it together one stitch at a time. If you needed a shirt, a tailor would have to cut, and sew each one individually. This way of making things is called craft production. It took a lot of time and skill, but the result was a unique, one-of-a-kind product. But with the Industrial Revolution, everything changed. Machines started doing the work that people used to do by hand. And instead of making things by hand in a shop or a home, people started working in factories where machines were doing the work. So instead of one tailor making one shirt at a time, now we had machines that could make many shirts in just a few minutes. Now that's what we call mass production. It turns out that making things in a factory like this was not only much faster, but also a lot cheaper than having tailors make things by hand. So everybody started doing it. By the end of the Industrial Revolution, mass production in factories was making nearly all of the goods that we use every day. Now factories were great, but they had their own problems. They were kind of messy and dangerous places to work. And even though they could make tons of stuff really fast, they weren't very good at making lots of different kinds of stuff. I mean, they could make more of the same thing really fast. But if you wanted something a little bit different, you were out of luck. For example, if you wanted a shirt that was a slightly different color or a different size, they couldn't easily do that in the factory. They could only make one color and one size at a time. And stopping the machines to change the color or the size would take a long time and cost a lot of money. Well, some very clever people came up with an amazing solution to this problem. They invented the assembly line. Instead of the products moving from one place to another while getting worked on, it kept the workers moving and each worker did the same task over and over again. For example, maybe one worker put the sleeves on shirts, and the next worker put the buttons on, and the next worker folded them, and so on. Henry Ford used this method to make cars. He had one worker putting the wheels on, another worker putting the engine in, and so on. And this made his factory the most efficient in the world. He could make way more cars faster than anybody else. This change from handmade goods to standardized products made with machines was a huge change in the way that goods were made, and it led to some big changes in society. 2. People left the countryside and moved into cities where the factories were, so they could get jobs. Families who used to work in fields, making things by hand now had one or two parents working in factories, while the children worked in factories too. Sometimes entire families would work in one factory and everyone would be paid based on how much they produced. Women and children often did dangerous, repetitive tasks for low wages. Many people, especially children, were injured on the job, but the goods they made were cheaper and more plentiful than ever before. Also, since making things in factories was so much faster than making things by hand, people could produce and sell more stuff than ever before. This meant more money for factory owners, and eventually those factories became the biggest businesses in the world. The factory system may sound like a small step in the grand scheme of things, but it really laid the foundation for modern manufacturing. Everything from the products we use to the way that we work, to the way that our economy functions, is a direct result of this one big change.